studied, and I want to say that he said at least 10 times each for each of those, he talked about the greats that he learned from. And there's no question. And I think he can prove that in no limit of time, his brilliance, right? And his ability. There's no question his ability. I mean, he's funny and he stands out amongst others. Keep that in mind. Yes. He said something else when he talked about, what's our brother name that just got off? He was dealing with, was it 4 charges, and he was found guilty of 2 and not guilty of 2 others. What's our brother's name who just got caught up with the white girl? I don't know why I'm doing a blank.
Jonathan Majors?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan Majors. They talked about Jonathan Majors. I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, yeah.
And he talked about, Cat Williams said, he, in talking to Shannon, he said, well, you know, he said, I don't see, you know, he said white women are no, you know, different than any other woman, but he said, I'm scared of them, which is why he said he's avoided dealing with them, I guess, because how they can mess up your whole world in 2 weekends. Mm-hmm. So, and he's the one that invoked Jonathan Major's name in the conversation. And then he went on to talk about his world tours and him being in some of the European countries and so forth, and discuss the fact that, of course, he said those different people and those folks are no different than anybody else. He was talking about other people groups, Caucasians, whites, that he would help, and basically not seeing anybody any different, you know, than us, basically, right? Not got that sense about not really being so much pro-Black, that sort of thing. I'm going to say this because this is something I have to say. My entire life, and I just turned 45, Brother Rich, on January 2nd.
Happy belated. Happy belated.
Thank you so much. A glorious feeling to be 45 years of age. So as a student of spirituality and religion, not a master, but a student, and having tapped into some of these things and understanding some of the energies of some of these things, and as I grow and learn, I can understand how you feel that you come to intellectual supremacy. Some folks feel like that they have mastered something. They feel like they've been exposed to enough to where everything and everybody is the same. And then people give scientific reasons as to why, and invoke such terms as this new age that we're in and this new frequency that we're in and how everybody and everything is the same. Let me tell you something. I'm not someone that doesn't understand why one would say that. Are you hearing me? Mm-hmm. I'm someone, notwithstanding now, some platforms, I want to say this, some folks used to seeing me on like Fly Nubian and some other platforms that I had with Dr. Boyce. Right now, I'm not connected to him. There's some behind the scenes stuff. I won't get into any of that at this point, but I'm still on another network and other platforms. And of course, I'm giving more attention now to my own channel at VickiDillard.tv. Over the years, Brother Rich, and the different platforms and the different networks that I've helped to build, you have a greater reach. You understand? So I hear from people in Israel. I hear from people in Europe and in Russia and in Australia. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So you understand that your impact is not just your own. It's not just your four no more. It's not just your hood, not just your community, right? Mm-hmm. That's understood. Don't check me, baby. I'm unable to be checked on that. I'm uncheckable, in fact. Mm-hmm. I'm saying this because you have a large spiritual community. Mm-hmm. And I know that it lies under the surface and people want to get away with this, but I'm going to help you. This is an admonishment that came on me as I was preparing for tonight's broadcast. Mm-hmm. No level of ascendancy that you could ever get scientifically, spiritually, metaphysically, otherwise, I don't care whose name you drop. I don't care what credentials. You hear me and you better hear me real good. If your spirituality and your science does not solve problems in the terra firma that you're on, ninja, if this is beneath you, and if you want to talk about science and this other stuff in a way that has no bearing on your reality, and then you act like everybody and everything is the same, I challenge you on that. It cannot be true. When I say talk Black to me, I've said this for years. I am not talking just about Black folks in the traditional sense of my people and my own. I'm invoking something spiritually and cosmically, because Black, as the nation teaches, is the essence, yes, from which all things come. So when you're looking at a Black person and they experience things historically that can be recorded and proven more and disproportionately than anybody else, it's all Black to me. And you're looking at the Black woman, the oldest human being, who has the mitochondria. Don't you act like I'm just like Gretchen and Karen. It is not about Black supremacy in that sense. It's about rank. It's about order. It's about how things are arranged. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. So
don't come to me like we don't have a unique purpose. The original mothers and fathers of civilization in this time to reorder and rebalance the world, and with a particular emphasis on the original Black woman. So I want to say, I am so over folks acting like we didn't like anybody. And so because you done wrote a few books, you invited to a few platforms that you think is out of reach for us, or because you've engaged with the other people groups, I said, I understand that. Didn't I say that? My reach is that as well. And it's profound. I am their mother. Of course I impact them, fool. But to act like that we're just like everybody else in this time, and that there's not a particular rank and order and a unique work that we do that none else can do at this moment is incorrect. And I will not let any get by with it. I ain't tripping about who you decide you want to marry, or lay with, or whose babies you want to bear. I'm simply saying that this is a metaphysical and a spiritual thing. And when you're dealing with the Black man and the Black woman, you're not dealing with just a color issue. You're dealing with the vibrational energy issue. You understand? And this has to do with the ma'at and the proper arrangement of things. Now, this may seem like it's out of order. It may seem like it doesn't make any sense. But this was a heaviness on me that I was supposed to release into the atmosphere, because you got a lot of people that do a lot of things. You got a lot of people that's a part of a whole lot of different spiritual systems. And you think that because you've acquired a whole lot of something, baby, you better go sit your funny looking self down. You're listening to your mother, the ancient one, the oldest human being. And there is nobody that you can put before me that can neither gainsay or resist what I said. And if I be a prophetess, it shall be this way and no other. And you will see it in due course.
Let me, I don't want you to let them get you too angry, Vicki, because I see that look in your eyes. You look like
no, it ain't about that. This is something that had to be said. And it was something that Cat hinted at in his interview.
Hinted at it, yeah.
You understand? And so I know that that's connected to what's going on in the spiritual world, because we use it as a justification. But we're going to miss our contract with Earth if we miss the fact that we have a unique work to do. It's not about Black supremacy. That's why I'm emphasizing that. But it is about rank. And it is about a greater frequency and a vibration and a unique work that nobody else is meant to do in this time.
You know, one of the things, Vicki, that, you know, when you talked about the Black man and the Black woman, one of the things that Boozy stressed during this interview. So I'm sorry, I said Boozy because I'm about to ask about Boozy. Okay. One of the things that Cat stressed in this interview was some of the homosexual acts that go on behind the scenes in Hollywood, and people being forced to engage in acts that, I guess, for pay. There's a term called gay for pay. And
when I was locked up, there was a thing called gay for the stay.
Wow. Yeah. Gay for the that's wow. I could, yeah.
I see them. You see that same mouth that they doing something in the bedroom with you. That's the same mouth they greet their husband and children with when they come to visit them on the weekends. Yeah,
definitely. So he talked about it a lot, Vicki, and he mentioned names like Harvey Weinstein. What's the other comedian name? What's the Black dude name? I forget his name, but he mentioned Diddy. He mentioned a couple of people in Hollywood and just what goes on. He talked about protecting his virgin booty hole and stuff like that.
Yes.
I want to ask you, Vicki. Sometimes when the male celebrities, Black ones, when they come out, and maybe it's not just Black ones, but from what I noticed, like let's say Little Boozy, and that's why I said his name because I was going to use him as an example.
Okay.
Cat Williams would come out and say something. Little Boozy would come out and criticize, let's say, Dwayne Wade or his son. And the first thing that happens when a brother comes out and maybe criticize and say there's an agenda going on, the first thing that happens is that community and women call the brother gay. They say he's in the closet homosexual. That's why he's criticizing them. So talk to me about why is that automatically the first thing that's said by that community, and from what I noticed, by a woman every time a brother comes out, a celebrity comes out and says something about that community.
Well, it's certainly not every woman, because
No. I noticed that's a trend, or that's a thing that happens. So
you're right.
It almost neutralizes men not to say.
You answered the question. You really did. You really did. That's exactly why it's done. You know, it's a shaming tactic, and it's precisely meant to do what you said. I couldn't have used a better term. It's the fact that it's meant to neutralize you. And so when you submit and they silence you by saying that, because we can't have your idea prevailing, you understand?
Right.
And that's the reason why there's always this notion of a war of words. We've heard that phrase before, right? We've heard that in the media, but that's a real thing. That's real warfare actually takes place. Before we would assassinate our greats here in the United States, right? Our Black revolutionaries, before we bombed some Black town, right? Before we destroyed some Black organization. Remember, they always demonized them first. Is that right? We always tried to make them look like an idiot and crazy. And then you had Christians that had greater hate for the Muslim Nation of Islam folks than you did the oppressor. You know why? Because you shared your religion. You still called them your brothers and sisters in Christ. You had a greater deference and mercy that you would show your oppressor, who used that religion to crucify your mother in Oklahoma and your father in Mississippi. Do you understand?
Oh, yeah.
And I always talk about that, about how the fact, you know, we sitting here tripping over Jesus that we say 2,000 years ago they died in Calvary and somewhere near Palestine. But you've got Calvary is all throughout the United States, baby. And the bodies are dismembered and set on fire, and they ate a lot of their body parts. You understand?
Oh, yeah.
This is important that we understand that. That's another reason why you can't tell me we ain't got a different assignment. You understand? There's something else that's happening with us that makes our particular work unique in this time in order to rebalance the planet and ultimately the galaxy and the cosmos, the extensions of other extensions of the cosmos. These are terms that I'm using in my own spiritual. I know you got way more intelligent folks that understand outer space and scientific terms than me, but I'm using them in a very broad and spiritual manner. So of course that happens because it's meant to silence. Of course it happens because it's meant to neutralize. I've been doing a lot of coverage on one of the other platforms I'm on, African Diaspora News Channel, where I do a lot of geopolitical news now more than before. And it's kind of taking some people by surprise. And, you know, it's pretty interesting when you hear from people around the world. And of course, my own folks here in the United States that wants to know why are you weighing in on these particular topics? Well, I am the mother of civilization, silly. So of course I have something to say about the planet. That's mine. So of course, and the reason it's in the condition it's in because you guys think you're the ones that's appointed and anointed to talk about it, and look at the way the world is going. So y'all need to hear from Mama. So with that being said, I've done a lot of coverage on multiple countries, in particular Africa. And one of the broadcasts that I did that I think is probably what 1.4 million some months ago. I would say probably 30% of my supporters there are white folk. Wow. On that video. And guess what that video was titled?
Wow.
It was about how President Museveni, who is the president of Uganda, shut down President Obama because President Obama came out fairly recently to criticize Uganda's LGBTQ law that they passed. So not just that, but also Uganda. I've been doing coverage concerning the MP there, Mr. Sam George. I have a great respect for him. He just testified before the UN, reminding the UN and quoting from their charter that relationships between a man and a woman and how societies are formed is actually codified in the UN charter between a man and a woman. And so he brought that to their attention because guess what? The United States and many of the Western countries are putting unrelenting pressure on many of these African countries to conform. So because Uganda, for example, and because Ghana and other countries have been imposing and passing laws in their countries related to that, the United States has now retaliated with sanctions using trade agreements like that we have with a lot of the African countries with the AGOA. AGOA is a trade agreement where basically they don't pay tariffs to trade with the United States. So guess what the United States does to put pressure on them about the LGBTQ laws?
What?
They say, if you don't change this law, or if you pass this law, we're no longer going to allow you to participate in free tariffs with our AGOA, our African Growth Opportunities Act. That's what that stands for. You can't participate with that now. Guess what else that they're attacking in some of the countries? Now all the millions that we've so bragged about we did for their AIDS program, guess what they're doing now? They're snatching the funding for some of the AIDS programs. So they're constantly putting pressure on these African nations. And President Museveni, in his response to President Obama, former President Obama, because he spoke this recently, he said that he calls it social imperialism. That's profound. He said, in Africa, we think that this is strange that you guys let this go on in your country. He said, but we just keep quiet. He said, because it's your country. But since you coming here, you understand, trying to impose this on us and then turning around, punish and sanction it, he turned around and made it very clear, you know, that this is a type of social imperialism. And so I only brought that up to let you know that it is a serious issue. I definitely believe it's connected to population control. I definitely believe it's their concern. As a great doctor, prophetess, scholar, warrior, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing warned us about the fear of genetic annihilation. And that's happening right before our eyes. And of course, I feel that there are all kinds of things that will be done in relation to that. But a lot of these African countries and Black folks, some folks in America, are pushing back because we understand that's a very real agenda. But I brought that up to say it's very, very serious. And we're seeing that in multiple African countries. And that's one of the areas that most of them, an overwhelming number of them, they are going without. And they're stepping up to the West and the United States because of that. So I'm saying, in line with the question you asked me, is certainly an agenda. And I was just trying to expand that to let you all know that we're doing our dirty work in Africa in particular. One of the other points I want to make concerning that is, do you know that Qatar and Saudi Arabia is one of the United States trading partners? In those countries, you could actually be unalived for such homosexual acts. The United States does not talk to them the way they do Africa. They don't impose those types of sanctions. Didn't I just tell you that they're one of America's top trading partners, right? Billions of dollars every year, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, among others. Why is the United States not putting that type of pressure, you understand, on, again, these are Black, deeply melanated folks. Do you understand that they're putting pressure on, threatening, imposing sanctions, if other people groups that have laws where they'll actually unalive you for such acts that they don't do for African countries? So I want you to really think about that as well. That's very important. And even Russia, to be honest, Russia won't unalive you on that, but they have very strong, strict. That's one of the only so-called white countries, European countries, even though Russia distances themselves from being European sometimes because they don't act like the others over there for the most part. But you see that they're one of the only European countries that are not about that life.
Indeed. Indeed. So do you think, like we said, we started out 2024, you know, the collective consciousness is focused on what this interview and what was said. Do you think that this will be a theme this year in terms of people making these, exposing what's going on behind the scenes and things like that? Like I remember there was a year where it seemed like police killings was a theme going on in the media. And every time I looked up, there was another police killing and thing like that. Do you think that this will be a theme for this year, spiritually speaking, and that the veil has to be lifted about what's really going on behind the scenes?
Absolutely. And the biggest reason these things are going to happen, Brother Rich, is because Mystery Babylon is fallen. Her handlers, you understand? And the extension of Mystery Babylon with folks that look like us. You see? We give energy to any topic in any sphere and in any area of people activity. So when we're involved in anything, Think about what happened in Israel. Think about what's happening now there. Did you see the outburst of white folks here in the United States and even in Israel, where a famous entertainer that was pumping up the IDF, which is the military forces there. I'm trying not to use that name as much. Them folks.
Yeah, please don't. You know they'll strike a channel in a second for that. Yeah.
So I'm careful with that. But one of the celebrities, the artist there, was pumping them up to prepare for the fight. I'm bringing this up to say, guess what his
you posted this, yeah. What was it? Tell the people. I remember you posted this, yeah.
He likened, and I'm not even going to say the country now, but he likened the country that they were battling with. We'll say that.
Yeah.
He called them, "You black woman."